Hi, and welcome to another episode of the CX Matters podcast. My name is Justin Tippett, the CEO of AXPA, and in this episode, we're going to be talking specifically about customer journey mapping. And when it comes to customer journey mapping, I thought, well, who can we talk to? And I thought, you know what? There's no one better than this man right here, Rod Netterfield, Director of HuMind, and also a member of our advisory board for all things customer experience. Welcome, Rod.
Brilliant. Thanks, Justin. Cheers.
We, like we do on all our episodes, try and keep them quite specific on a topic. And for this one, it is customer journey mapping. So I'm just going to throw it right open, right from the bat. What the hell is this customer journey mapping thing that we keep talking about and hearing about, Rod?
Yeah, definitely. And look, if you're in customer experience, it's probably the number one or number two request that we'd get about, I need a journey map. And the journey map, ultimately, it's that visual summary, if you like, of what the customer goes through from their point of view. And it's really important, the last part of that sentence, the from their point of view. So in my experience, if you think about a great journey map, it's one that's going to bring together customer insights and customer data that tells their story. And so if it's a story, it's going to have a beginning, it's going to have a middle, and it's going to have an end.
Yep.
And what's really important, though, is that the beginning and the end isn't just the first and the last touch point the customer may have with you. In fact, many of the journey maps I do will have multiple steps or touch points or activities or things that they're doing that occur before they even make that first contact or well beyond that last contact with you. And when we think about the journey map from a, let's call it a base template perspective, you'll see typically in most journey maps that they'll have a doing swim lane, they'll have a thinking swim lane, and a feeling swim lane. And those last ones, the thinking and the feeling, is ultimately where you generate that empathy for your customers. And it's where I really see it drives and helps you drive that customer-centered change that you're looking to do as a result of the journey map.
Yep. Can I take it back one step further?
Oh, sorry, of course, yeah.
Because we sort of mentioned, it is the number one thing that people are typically asked to do when you hear CX. But why do companies, why do they or why should they be doing customer journey mapping in the first instance?
Yeah, and it's a really good one. And funnily enough, like if you think about either as an internal CX practitioner or somebody in a consultancy space, that's typically when people come to you and they say, "Oh, I want a journey map." Your first question back to me, well, why?
Yep.
So often it's that we're trying to do something in terms of building a level of understanding. So often we might not actually understand what is really going on. And so that's actually the intent of what we're trying to get from building a journey map. Sometimes we might be using journey maps as the basis to drive customer-centered improvements. And sometimes it's actually, and it does form a really great basis for ideation. Now that's making an assumption though there that you're doing, I guess, a current state journey map. Sometimes you might actually be doing a journey map for something that doesn't exist right now. Or you might have a really solid footing of understanding what it is you're doing today, and you could actually then create a future state journey map to articulate this North Star or a vision of what could be.
Right. So there's as you said, there's essentially a number of different lenses, if you like, customer journey mapping that can be done through, whether it's current state, future state, etc. So once we've established the need, we go, you know what? Yeah, that's something that I think we should do, because we've often got perceptions of what we think happens for the customers may be very different from reality, right? So, how do you get started? You mentioned a template, and I know we've got a template or a couple of templates on AXPA that our members can download if you want something to get started. But aside from that, how do companies get started on doing customer journey mapping? Because they can be quite, intensive pieces of work, right?
They are, yeah. And look, they are. And look, I was going to say, it's probably the first thing I'll say in terms of where you get started is you need to have a strong sponsor. Now, you're probably going to go, well, duh, Rod. But, any good project, like a journey mapping project, needs to have strong sponsorship, and without that, you really just you can't even start.
Yeah, and can I just cut in, Rod, and just ask with a sponsor, because we've got people of all different skills that listen to this podcast. So we've got people that are very new to CX, and we've got obviously lots of experienced people. But if you're relatively new and you're sort of hearing this word sponsor, why is it so crucial to have a sponsor for your journey mapping?
Yeah, bingo. So great question. So look, I think the key part is finding a sponsor that's going to hold the resources, the budget, and the approval authority that you will need to, I guess, act upon and drive change. So that, there's different roles in different organizations that will have that, but you'll need someone that's relatively senior. Depending though as well on the size and the scope of the project you might be completing, you may actually need multiple sponsors. And so, I find this right now, when I've got an organization I'm having discussions with at the moment who are looking at their sort of their acquisition journeys, so that pre-inquiry, inquiry, and onboarding type phase for their customers.
Yeah.
And that actually requires 3 sponsors who have got, as in aggregate, that resource, budget, and approval authority to help actually drive change off the journey mapping project.
And is that, in that particular instance, Rod, is that because they're quite siloed internally and they've got all those functions sort of split up? Yep.
Yeah, definitely. And that's probably where, if you think, and before I spoke about current states and future states, and if you think about the current state journey, the customers in that case are feeling the silos. And so when we flip the switch, if you like, to a future state and an articulation of what should be or could be, that's where we have to redesign that experience so that our customers are not feeling the silos of the organization.
Yep. Okay. All right. So I think we've hopefully established a case of why we should be doing a customer journey map and why it's important to get a sponsor to make sure that you've got the authority and budget and everything that you need, resources to get it done. So then how do you get started? What happens from there?
Yeah, definitely. So we've got our sponsors, we've pulled together a core team of people to drive the project, and I guess away we go. Now, there's 2, I guess, approaches that you can do in terms of what order you might do your activities in journey mapping. I shouldn't say majority of the time, but yeah, it is probably actually the majority of the time when I think about my experiences, we will use what's called an assumption-first approach to journey mapping.
Okay.
And what that means is that I guess we get all of the internal knowledge, data, artifacts, maybe even previous journey maps that have been done to pull together a baseline of what it is we already know, or what is it we already think we know, before we go and do the customer research. You can flip it the other way around and do a research-first approach. I find that I probably do that less in the organizations that I'm engaged by, but particularly the research-first approach will be relevant, certainly, if you're building something from the ground up that doesn't currently exist.
Right, yep.
I guess either way, so if I go the assumption-first approach, so we get started, we get all of the existing information together. And so I do, I guess, 2 things here in that I encourage, I guess, all of those internal people, and sometimes as well there'll be partners or suppliers that may be involved.
Yep.
And we in the past I used to say empty your desk drawers. I guess now I say empty your virtual desk drawers. And it's basically bring everything that we know. And so we'll have the journey framework of what we think it is that the customer's going through, and we'll plot and we'll map all of the things that we currently have. And then we'll go and what we'll typically see is that we have some gaping holes where there's actually a whole lot of unknown. And so we'll create then an understanding of, well, if we're going to go and do customer research, what are all the things that we want to find out? And importantly then, we'll prioritize what are those things that we want to find out, because we might not be able to get to them all. Question?
I was just going to say, so when you talk about sort of plotting it out, and I know, typically when you see journey mapping done, people have got sticky notes all over walls, and obviously virtually it's probably different, but there are software, I've actually seen software that is basically virtual sticky notes. It does journey mapping, right? So there's definitely there's tools out there, right, that exist.
Definitely. Definitely, and it's a collab. So whether you do it online or offline, and I've run engagements where through I guess the last couple of years we had to pivot from online to offline or vice versa.
Yep.
There's lots of great tools out there, but it's less about the tool and it's more about driving that collaboration and that opportunity and forum for discussion.
Yep. And so when you said you sort of grab a whole bunch of people together from the organisation, I'm making some assumptions here for the benefit of our listeners, but I'm guessing that's people from marketing, from the contact centre, from finance, maybe from like literally all sort of representation across the business. Is that the idea behind it?
Yeah, definitely. In the simplest sense, I guess the broader that you can engage an organization, I often talk about it being like a diagonal slice through the organization, because you want to get this beautiful diversity of opinions and perspectives and views into your journey maps and the experience that you're either currently providing or you want to provide. And typically, if I think about a more diverse working group as a part of a journey mapping project, typically I see drives actually better outcomes at the other end.
Yeah. Okay. So we're basically going and we're asking everyone, saying, okay, well, we know the first part of the journey for a customer is X, Y, Z, and we're asking basically in the assumption mode, we're asking everyone's their interpretation of what happens at that point for the customer, right? Is that essentially how it works?
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, we're capturing what it is we think, what is it we know, or what we think we know.
Yep.
And then ultimately, what is it that we're wanting to go and find out where we might have blind spots or gaps in our knowledge?
Yep. And when you touched on earlier, you said, what's really important is feelings, for example. How do you get that? That's the customer research component, I'm guessing, or is it your perception of the customer feelings?
Yeah, definitely. And look, it'll probably depend on the maturity of your CX sort of program, more generally speaking, in that you may have a voice of customer program, you may have some level of sentiment analysis, there could be any number of data sources there that could help you.
Yep.
But the feeling swim lane, if you like, in that journey map, I would typically be populating as a result of the customer research that you do. So when you flip out from, well, this is what we already know, to let's go and actually research with our customers, we will go and have a conversation with a whole lot of customers that are representative of your customers or your target customers.
Yep. And is that just literally asking them for their experience, or are you using the customers to validate the assumptions that you've already come up with?
Yeah. Look, I have done it both ways. More often than not, I'll probably be doing, depth interviews or focus groups or journal or diary studies.
Yep.
And I guess more recently, there's been a lot more use of the online activities and discussion forums. And probably don't forget, I guess, just good old observational research.
Yep.
And so you go out there and you just try to amass all of this insight or perspective about your customer. And then I would more often than not be then bringing that back to the journey map. There has been, I guess, crunch times where I've had to deliver quickly, where we've actually invited customers to come and co-create and co-design with us as part of the journey mapping activity as well.
Yep.
It's probably a little bit more mature estate, so maybe not be what you want to bite off first time you're doing this.
Yeah. Good point. Okay, so we've done the sticky notes or the virtual sticky notes. We've got everything mapped out. We've asked everyone. We've researched the customers and asked them to either validate our assumptions or in-depth research where they tell us their experience in their words, or we observe them in their environment. What happens then? What's next?
Yeah, definitely. And so I think probably caution one is that we've probably made it sound really quite linear. And if you've had an experience of journey mapping, you'll probably understand when I say it, when it's not anything but linear, that it is a little bit iterative. So you do go around a few times.
Yep.
And my caution to you is if you are going around a few times, you might not be going deep enough with what you're trying to investigate. That's my caution.
Yep.
But when you get to a point, you go, you know what, we actually think we're finished and we're comfortable with where we've got to. You want to actually do something with it. I think we spoke about this in a previous podcast, Justin, where sometimes the CX artifacts is we do this great work, but if we don't go and tell everyone we've done it and share it, they just sit on a virtual shelf somewhere or sit on a wall somewhere gathering dust.
Yep.
And so the key part about, I guess, when a journey mapping project is finished is that you need to get out there and you need to tell and share stories over and over and over again. And when you're doing that, you need to make it accessible to people, but you also need to make it really, really relevant to the team or the function within an organization that you might be having a conversation with. Because ultimately what we're trying to do here is drive and inspire that customer-centered change. And the other key part as well, and it's probably about the time, how you're maintaining it and keeping it timely. You will need to think about at some point, how are you going to digitize these customer journey maps? And I think that's got two parts these days. In one, it makes it accessible,
Yep.
but it also makes it a lot more maintainable so that you can track or maintain and update it over time as well.
Yep. So assuming that we've either built a visual, and it might be literally a big poster on the wall, or it might be digitized, as you said, that you've actually then got a very clear path or journey of what the customers are going through. Obviously, the point of doing this is to make changes or improvements in most instances, right? So how do you get from going, okay, well, we think we know what the problem is now. Yep, we've validated some of those concerns. How do you then go to actually closing the gap and improving the experience?
Yeah, definitely. And that, mapping the journey is only part of that, and then driving the change is just as big a journey off the back of it. Pardon the pun.
Yep.
So look, I mean, off the basis of that, you will then, again, working with that sponsorship group, identify what are those moments or those touch points along the journey are the ones that we need to invest in and we need to make improvements in. Now, that can be two-part. It could be about you've got a low point in the customer journey that you need to address. Sometimes, though, as well, you'll have a point in the journey where you'll actually go, there's a moment here that really matters. but it's actually fairly neutral or sort of meh at the moment.
Yep.
And we need to actually invest to make that more of a positive moment, or a moment that the customers will remember fondly. And so, you'll identify those moments that you might be wanting to do improvement upon. And then using, I guess, a sort of a human-centered design sort of method, you would then go and you would create ideation opportunities, and then you would do potentially co-design or prototype and testing to actually work out, well, where is it you're going to make those improvements.
Yep. Now, you're a qualified CCXP, I believe, Rod? Yes?
Yes, correct.
Excellent. Yep. So you're using big words that some people may not know, which is ideation. What is ideation, Rod?
Yeah, oh goodness. So if you put it down, like ideation, I sometimes fear if you call it brainstorming, it's not doing it justice. But ultimately, ideation is just trying to create a range and a raft of ideas for potential future states.
Yep.
And look, there is method, if you like, that is there as well in terms of how you will do an ideation session to get people to bust themselves out of the way they currently are doing things, to think about possibilities, and to think about possibilities from a customer's perspective. But yeah, many people probably call it brainstorming, but it's brainstorming but supercharged.
Yep, there we go. Thank you for clarifying. If anyone was listening and going, what the hell is that? Hopefully we've answered that question for you. Now, I want to ideally give some people some tips if they are contemplating going down the customer journey mapping path. So hit us with your top tips.
Yeah, definitely. So look, I think top tip number one, and it won't work in every circumstance, but the majority of the time, I would encourage you to always leverage what you already have, particularly if you're capturing a current state of your journey. There is going to be so much knowledge, information, and data you already have that can help start you sort of on your way. I think it's about finding the right tools. And like you said, Justin, there are so many tools out there these days that can help you be more effective and efficient in doing your journey mapping in different ways to help drive collaboration virtually.
Yep.
And look, ultimately, journey mapping is a team sport. And the more people you can involve in that, so your colleagues, your customers, your partners, suppliers, whoever it is relevant, bring them in, because ultimately the more diverse you can make the group of people completing the journey mapping project, the better the outcomes are, and typically the more success I've seen people drive off the back of it.
Yep. As always, some great tips, Rod. Now, if people want to get more information on journey mapping, we have some articles on the AXPA website. We have some templates that you can download on the AXPA website. And we also have some training courses if people are interested in learning more about customer journey mapping. So you'll find all of that on the website. So it's just AXPA, acxpa.com.au. And if you want to hear more about Rod, make sure you subscribe to the CX Matters podcast, because we've got a number of podcasts with not only Rod, but other experts from the contact center, customer experience, customer service, digital service, etc. space. So thank you again for listening, Rod. Thanks for your expertise yet again. And we look forward to catching you on the next episode of the CX Matters. Bye for now.